was in a Beastie Boys video. He was even in a Paula Abdul video. He was in Sin City. Anybody love Sin City? He also worked with Jim Carrey. But you may know him as Frodo Baggins from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a warm Dutch Comic Con welcome, the one and only Mr. Elijah Wood!
Hello! Thanks, dude. Yeah. Hi! Good
How you doing, Elijah?
I'm good. I'm really well. How are you?
You good? I'm great. I'm great.
Awesome.
Great. We were here yesterday as well, and
Yeah, it's like deja vu, man.
yeah, man, such a good vibe too, bro.
It was great.
Looking forward to doing this again.
Same.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions, and then we will moonwalk into the Q&A with the audience.
Love it.
I know there's going to be a lot of questions, so I want everybody to be able to have their questions answered. So I'll keep the interview as short as I can. But this man is fascinating. He has a very deep catalog, so we got to go through some of the films and some of the steps that you already know about. Yeah, see, I always put the thing away. So listen, you were born in Iowa.
Yes.
Cedar Rapids?
Yes.
So tell us something about your early life and how you actually ended up in LA and started to act, because there's a lot to be spoken about.
Sure. Yeah, it's a funny road because there's not really, there's no real outlet for acting and getting into the film industry in Iowa. But the story goes, my mom was watching a commercial, it popped on TV when I was around 5 years of age. And I had a lot of energy growing up, and she saw this kid in the commercial, and she thought that that might be something fun for me to do. But there was no, again, like I said, there's no outlet for it in Iowa. So I ended up going to a modeling school and did sort of modeling on the side. And the school kind of had like an acting component. But anyway, long story short, we ended up, my brother and I and my mom, because my brother was already doing plays and musicals and stuff in school. He's 7 years older than me. And I'm going to Los Angeles for this sort of modeling and talent competition. There, I met a manager. I was, running through the halls of this hotel, and this guy stopped me and he was like, you kid, do you want to be an actor?
Wait a minute, he literally stopped you when you were running in a hotel?
Kind of, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I would. It sounded fun to me, and I think, a lot of people's origin stories when it comes to being in this field tend to be that there were certain movies that they saw as a kid that they thought that could be an option for them. And that really wasn't the case for me necessarily. I loved movies, but I never saw that as an option. I just thought the idea of sort of working with people, the idea of pretending, sounded fun. And also I think, the idea of traveling to California and seeing palm trees and all these things for the first time was really exciting for me. And so anyway, again, long story short, we ended up going out to Los Angeles just to try it out. And I got an agent, started auditioning for commercials. I got my first job, which is a Paula Abdul music video.
Right. Forever Your Girl?
Forever Your Girl, that's right, yeah. And it was directed by David Fincher.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Wow.
So before David Fincher, and a lot of these guys, Michael Bay too, a lot of these guys started out as music video directors.
Right.
Michel Gondry, and there's a whole generation after them that did the same, but yeah, so Fincher had not directed a feature film, and he had directed this video. Anyway, I loved it immediately and had a lot of fun, and sort of one thing led to another and very organically grew into a film career, which was never the intention.
Wow.
I just sort of fell into it and loved it, and I never went to school for it, so my experience was on set, and the sort of school for me in terms of acting was just working with incredible people and learning as I was going along.
Learning as you go.
Yeah.
Because one of the things you were part of early on, after the Paula Abdul video, if I'm not mistaken, was Back to the Future 2.
Yeah.
That was your second or third?
It was the first feature film that I was in. A tiny little role, play a kid in the back of the cafe 80s trying to work a video game. Marty McFly comes over and he's like, I got this game's great. And we confused look at him like, what are you talking about? You have to use your hands? Like,
it was your first feature film, or was it like how many gigs did you do before that, like as far as videos?
I did a number of commercials. I did a bunch of commercials.
So that was the first movie?
Yeah.
And then kind of
I a small role in a movie called Internal Affairs with Richard Gere.
Right.
Tiny little role. And then I worked on a movie called Avalon, which was the first sort of sizable role in a film. It was at the end of that year in 1989. I was 8 years old.
And then moving into the 90s and later the zeros, one of the films that I really think is striking is the Michel Gondry one with Jim Carrey, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to be a part of that movie and to work with a guy like Jim Carrey?
Dude, I mean, that movie was an absolute dream for me. I was a huge fan of Charlie Kaufman's work as a writer, massive fan of Michel Gondry as a music video director. But they had also collaborated on a prior feature film called Human Nature, so if you haven't seen it, check it out, because it's great. And so that was just a kind of a perfect storm of like my interests aligning. I would have done anything in that movie, and it just happened that that particular role was really exciting and fun to play. But to work with Jim Carrey, to work with Kate Winslet and Mark Ruffalo and Kirsten, it was just an absolute joy. And it was, every day creatively was so exciting. Like, so many things were being done in camera. A lot of what Michel does it's all practical effects, and he came up with things on the day. It was just a blast.
Is there anything specific you can share with the people that you learned from working with someone like Jim Carrey as far as how he approaches the craft?
Oh man.
That you picked up on?
He's so singular.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, one of the things that I observed, look, what was really special about what Jim did in that film, even more than like the Truman Show, because the Truman Show I think is often cited as like the first time he worked sort of dramatically in a film, although that still has a lot of comedy elements to it, and he's still quite funny in the movie. But this really, for me, Eternal Sunshine is the first time he really worked as a dramatic actor, right? There was nothing really comedic about that performance, and it was really fun to watch him deal with that. And he would listen to music a lot to get himself into a kind of emotional place. So a lot of emotional music. So I saw that as a tool that he was employing. But he was lovely. You know, he was lovely to be around. He was funny. The thing I noticed a lot is that because he's so used to, and prior to that was so used to what he does, both whilst acting and off screen, eliciting a funny response because he is a comedian. Yeah. And that there wasn't anything baked into the writing of this to elicit that response. So he would occasionally bust out and be funny just to kind of like get that response because that's what he's used to. Right. It was really interesting. But he was great and obviously so invested, you know.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Totally get that. Also, before we move into the Lord of the Rings thing, there are a couple of films that I want to mention. One of them being Celeste and Jesse Forever that you did with Rashida Jones and Ron Coleman. They wrote that. They were in it as well. Yeah. And I think you were great in it.
Thanks.
But like, is there anything you can say about that process? If you guys haven't seen this film, go check it. Celeste and Jesse Forever. It's a great, like, kind of like a comedy, I guess.
A rom-com, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what was it like to do that film?
It was great. I had worked with Rashida she guested on a TV show that I was in called Wilfred, and I was a fan of hers from her film work and from, you know, stuff that she did on Parks and Rec. And anyway, she's really lovely, and Will and her were writing this and trying to get this movie made while we were in production on Wilfred. So then she was like, hey, I've got this thing that you want to play a role in it. It's got this tiny little role. I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. The role is hilarious.
How many days of shooting did it take?
For me, on that, probably a total of 5.
Cool.
Something like that. Yeah. And it was cool because there was like a couple of days, maybe it was like 2 or 3 in LA, and then we all went to Newport, Rhode Island for the wedding scene. And that was all of us on location together, which was really rad. That was a really fun experience. We were actually at the director's family's house.
Right.
That's where
wow.
the scene was set.
Cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I'd never been to Newport before. It's beautiful. It was rad.
Yeah, sounds good. And also, one more thing about two films. We spoke about this earlier, but No Man of God. Anybody knows about that film, No Man of God? He's in that film. Then there's also Grand Piano, and you're phenomenal in that one. But here's the thing. What you do in those films is so creative. I told you before, but just moving into the Frodo character, I think your range of emotions is intense because you have this unique, fragile vibe about you as Frodo, being like, you know, the guy that has this dichotomy of like being super friendly with his friends and then obviously with the one ring and all that stuff. Do you use that same approach in different films? Because in Grand Piano, you are also this fragile character, a gifted artist, and also you're being hunted, you know? And then in No Man of God, you gotta deal with this psycho killer that becomes kind of like your friend. You know, those are all extreme things. Does it make any sense? Like,
it does. I mean, I guess the process of deconstructing any character and figuring out how to insert myself into a character and make that character come to life, the process is similar every time, because you're just trying to understand who it is that you're playing, play them truthfully and honestly, whatever that character may embody, right? No Man of God was interesting because it's a true story. It's about, you know, I play a real life human, this guy Bill Hackmeyer, who was an FBI profiler at the very, very early stages of when the FBI started their serial killer and sex offender profiling program.
right.
So prior to that, there wasn't anyone taking data to sort of work out the similarities between these people's sort of mental state and behavior patterns, to be able to then look for those sorts of things in subsequent criminals, right? So that had never been done before. And Bill, you know, they all were sort of taking different cases, and Bill decided, he opted to fly to Florida and meet with, or to figure out how to meet with Bundy. And the thing about Bundy is that he was notoriously untrusting of law enforcement, so everybody was like, yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
You're not going to be able to open up. And he got him to open up. And it's just a fascinating, they kind of, you know, at the end of Bundy's life, he considered Bill Hackmeyer his best friend. I don't know that Bill felt the same. But there was a degree of intimacy created between the two of them, and a trust created between the two of them, that allowed for real information to be sort of extracted from Bundy in a way that he never would have with anybody else. So it was a story, it was a script that we really loved. I was a producer on the film too. We'd had the script for like 5 years. It was a story we really wanted to tell. We were fascinated also at just being able to tell a story involving Bundy that wasn't glorifying Bundy, but really got into the sort of psychological, almost chess match between these two people. And largely the movie is a series of conversations. You know, it's just these meetings that they have. Anyway, I love that film, and it was a joy to make.
And the reason I'm asking is...
The actor Luke Kirby, who plays Bundy in the film, is incredible. Worth checking out alone for his performance. I mean, it's uncanny how similar he is to Bundy.
It's an interesting intellectual movie about something real dark.
Yeah.
And the humanity that comes with it, with your role. But the reason I'm asking this, because I know you can't wait for the Lord of the Rings part. Frodo Baggins, obviously, that's kind of like, it becomes this mammoth franchise, and you know, this is attached to you. But I know you as a craftsman, and I admire that, and I love that, as you know, being an artist myself. But you have so much work done to build it. You got to do so much work to build a character like Frodo and play him, right?
Sure.
But once it becomes that big movie, people always, oh, Frodo. But you put so much work into creating Frodo, and I think that's amazing with the intriguing duality that he goes through. So can you share with the audience what you do to prepare to become Frodo. What did you do in that time, in that era? Like,
oh man, I mean, an immense amount of pressure, you know, to bring a beloved literary character to life. I really lent on the script. I lent on Peter and Fran and Philippa.
Peter Jackson, the director?
Yeah, and Fran, his wife, who was a writer, and Philippa Boyens, who was also a writer. I really lent on them. I lent on so many elements to sort of make that character come to life. I think what was unique about our experience, you know, because all of us had a relatively huge arc, and what's unique about the way that we shot those films, typically you wouldn't shoot them 3 films back to back or simultaneously. And it was a gift that we could, because we were able to sort of encapsulate those arcs and kind of be able to see them in real time and work them out. Because, you know, what Frodo starts as and ends up as are very different things.
Exactly.
And we had the luxury of a little bit of time, but also it sort of happening in real time to sort of work it out. And we were constantly tracking it, you know, given wherever we were, what we were shooting. If we were shooting something from the second film, it's sort of, you know, we were constantly questioning, okay, where is Frodo at this given time in terms of his alliance to Gollum, or his distrust of Sam, or his sort of, you know, giving over to the ring. It's all these just sort of modulations that we were constantly thinking about and aware of, and I didn't do it alone, you know.
No, you had a great team, obviously, but still, it's the combination of all these talented people with different skills that makes the project.
Sure.
But you said something about deconstructing characters, but you just used the word. Oh man, I forgot. It's a compilation of everything. Can you say this? It's like an alchemy of everything happening around you that helps you create Frodo.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a combination of elements, like the environment that you're in, the set that you're on, the wardrobe that you're in, you know, the dialect.
Right.
Working with the dialect coaches and getting the voice right. It really is a kind of combination of elements. Obviously, there's my read on the character and my interpretation of that, and imbuing it with life and making choices. But it's also, you know, it's also all of the elements sort of surrounding you that kind of help contextualize and bring that character to life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And you made it your own. I mean, you know, you really nailed that. And okay, one more thing that's more a bit lighthearted is the wardrobe.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys had to rock like the Hobbit feet.
Yeah.
And we spoke about it, but I want to touch on that again. Is it true that you guys had to wear like super big boots to cover up the prosthetic Hobbit feet? Otherwise, the press would take pictures and it would be known that you guys were filming Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, they were trying. It's so
funny. They must have been super large.
They were really big. These giant green with a big Velcro thing they went up to here just to cover the feet. But it's funny, you know, they were trying to dissuade and evade photographers, you know, people trying to take photos and then posting those photos online to try and preserve as much of the film for the audience, you know, as possible.
It was pre-social media, but you guys still had to be careful.
Listen, the internet was in its infancy in regards to that kind of thing. There was like Ain't It Cool News and the OneRing.net, and there was a series of spies trying to get as many sort of photos as possible. We were trying to keep all of that as secret, so we would also wear these giant green robes. If we were walking from the set to our trailer or getting from point A to point B, they would have us kind of cover up in case there would be photographers. It's pretty funny.
It's still a cool story. They must have looked like prehistoric Yeezys or something.
Yeah, right?
But man, there's so many things I want to ask. If you guys want to know about what he's doing, he's going to drop a new film, The Toxic Avenger. He's going to be a part of that. But I think we're going to move into the Q&A.
Yeah, great.
So you guys can ask your questions to Elijah. And yeah, let's get it started. Hey, man.
Hi. So first of all, I want to ask you for being part of such a great movie.
Thank you.
They mean a lot to me. I want to ask everyone who was involved with the movie. But the question I want to ask you is, like, everybody took a lot of memorabilia from the movies, and I wonder if there's anything you regret not taking home.
I don't know if there's that's a great question. I don't know if there's a piece of memorabilia that I regret not taking. I mean, there's a couple, listen, Bag End, the set of Bag End, had a lot of little pieces here and there that were pretty great. Like, there are 2 portraits on the mantelpiece of a man and a woman, but they're done inspired by Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh, his wife.
Oh, wow.
So I really wanted those portraits. They're just like yay big, and then it's them as hobbits. Maybe like long lost Bagginses. So those would be cool to have, actually. And there are a lot of things like that. I do have a map that was in Bag End, but there were a lot of things in Bag End that were very cool. And just kind of cozy little trinkets. That's kind of it. There isn't, I mean, you know, outside of like the shards of Narsil or some awesome sword or something.
Hey, I like that question.
Anything related to hobbits. I mean, I have the ring.
You have the ring?
Yeah. I mean, there were multiples of the ring.
Yeah,
but yes, I
obviously.
have one of them.
How many were there?
There were over 10.
Over 10?
I think so.
But you got one of those.
I do, yeah.
That was my question. Wow, he has the ring.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Great. I got a replica.
All right, thank you guys.
Great question.
Thank you.
Next one. Goed in de microfoon praten, dan kunnen we het goed verstaan. Hey.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor.
Oh.
We have a very important question to ask you. This might change your career. Mr. Woods, do you wear wigs?
I certainly have. I certainly have. And I will again. It's so funny how much that interview has been embraced. Again, I feel like now that video is more popular than when we first put it on the DVD. It's amazing. I actually just recently rewatched it because my wife had never seen it. And I showed her, she was like, what is this will you wear wigs thing? I was like, baby, check it out. And I rewatched the whole thing and I hadn't seen the whole thing in like 20 years. It's pretty funny.
I love the question.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks. Next one. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to ask you something about Dirk Gently's.
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite scene?
My favorite scene. Man, it's been a while since I've thought about this series, so I'm like racking my brain to think about it. A sequence that I really like, although it was very difficult to shoot, is when, in season 2, when Dirk is stuck in the house within a house, and Todd ends up being able to communicate with him while he's in the house, and he's tracking where he is in the room, was really fun. And that whole, the whole house within a house was just a really clever device. And it was a difficult scene to shoot because he was doing lines off and I was trying to like track him in different parts of the room. So it was kind of complex, but I really enjoyed it. The thing about that show is that we never had a normal scene. I mean, there's no such thing as just like, you know, this is just you guys sitting down having a conversation about what? It was always fucking crazy and weird and absurd. And so constantly enjoyable. Like every single day was like something bizarre and funny and fun. We really loved making that show, and we were super bummed we didn't get another season.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks. Next question. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. First of all, welcome back.
Thanks.
It's good to have you. So yesterday I learned that you were a musical lover from Power here.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Yesterday, I heard you were a music lover from Brainpower here.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a go-to crowd pleaser or a favorite karaoke song?
Go-to crowd pleaser I can answer. I don't have a go-to karaoke song. I feel like every time I do karaoke, there's such a gap between doing it that I feel like I'm starting all over again. A go-to crowd pleaser. There's a really great boogie single from the 80s from a girl named Carmen called Time to Move. That's just great. It just works. I would say any kind of William Onyebor, like Nigerian track from the late 70s, early 80s, that tends to work.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like, you kind of know, they're just things that have like an immediate dance ability, but the Carmen track is great. It's just awesome.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes?
80s New York boogie. I mean, that can't go wrong with that.
I know you can't.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice question, by the way. Great stuff. Have a nice day. Next one.
Hi, well, first of all, thank you so much for being here. So my question is about The Lord of the Rings. So obviously you filmed a lot more scenes than there were actually in the movie. And I was wondering if you have a favorite scene from filming that didn't end up in the movie.
You know what's funny? I genuinely don't know if there's anything that I was in that was shot that didn't make it. I'm sure there is, but I've completely forgotten the deleted scenes. Because the thing is that so many scenes ended up backing in the film in the extended cuts. So things that didn't make the theatrical ended up in the extended. One of the things that I missed from the theatrical version of Return of the King, but it's in the extended, is the mouth of Sauron, the sort of the lieutenant that's at the Black Gates, who very much has like a Hellraiser Cenobite look to him. I love that character, and I loved it in the movie. I'm so glad it was put back in the extended, because I just think that character's great. But yeah, I actually don't remember. I'd have to like look it up, because I don't remember anything that we shot that didn't make it. It's been that long.
Yeah.
It has been 20 years.
Yeah, I can imagine. But thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have a great day.
It's a great question. There's so many deleted scenes, obviously, as well.
Yeah, but there was so much that was put back in the movie, so I don't now remember what was deleted, what genuinely didn't make it,
Gotcha.
and what was only out of the
Makes sense.
theatrical version.
Hi.
Yeah, I was about to ask a big question, but they already got asked, so. I know you're known for like Lord of the Rings and of course like childhood. Do you still remember the airplane safety video?
The New Zealand flight safety video?
Yes.
Of course I remember. Yes. Yeah, so Air New Zealand, for those who don't know, invited me to come back to New Zealand to shoot or to be a part of their flight safety video. Air New Zealand is notorious for making pretty amazing, very elaborate flight safety videos that they change every couple of years. And this one was Hobbit related, because it was, I think, to coincide with the release of The Hobbit, or around that time. And they got Taika Waititi to direct the flight safety video. So that was shot in Matamata at Hobbiton. I got to go back. Yeah, it was a blast. It was awesome. It was a joy to be able to go back to New Zealand to do that and visit. Any excuse to get to New Zealand, I will certainly take. And that was awesome. And I love Air New Zealand and love Taika, so it was fun.
Yeah, and thank you for my childhood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm very glad to see you here. I've been a long time fan, and one of my favorite shows is Dirk Gently's. I'm very sad there's no season 3, so I would like to know, what do you think would have happened to Dirk and Todd?
Well, I know some things about what were planned for season 3, because Max had it pretty well figured out. I know that he had created a character that was invisible, that may have existed the entire time, that you only find out about in season 3. Also, I think Todd and his sister are sort of like, they were kind of enemies a little bit, I think, and then we're going to be enemies in season 3. So there's a few things that I know. It was going to be, we were talking about maybe trying to shoot it in Atlanta. There was some talk of that. So I don't know. Anyway, there was a whole outline that he had planned. There's a lot of details that I've now forgotten, but it would have been great. The thing about that show that was really fun is each season, if you think about it, from season 1 to 2, and then season 3 was going to be no exception to this, is that it's essentially an anthology series, but the characters are all the same. So the genre changes every season with the case. The second season is like a fantasy series. The first season is this sort of weird sci-fi time travel series. So it's like every season was going to be its kind of own genre, and that was really thrilling to just think of where it could go, which was sort of endless.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Next question. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. What is your favorite scene from Lord of the Rings?
My favorite sequence is probably the Mines of Moria sequence. So from when they open the door and they enter Moria, which is quite grand and epic and amazing, and the scale of them against those halls, to the cave troll sequence leading to the Balrog sequence. It's just fucking thrilling from moment to moment. It doesn't let up until the fellowship sort of spill out onto the top of the mountain at the end. I just love it. It's so wonderful and thrilling, and it feels like a ride.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, phenomenal. It's such a majestic trilogy, you can't even pick one scene. It has to be a sequence.
Oh, it's so hard. Yeah, it's so hard.
Hey.
Hi. I'm actually asking for my mom, who's a big Tolkien fan.
All right.
And she was wondering how being involved with Lord of the Rings really got you more into the world of Tolkien and this big complex world, and like really getting into that.
What? Can you speak a little bit louder?
Yeah. So she was wondering how being involved in Lord of the Rings really got you more into this complex world that Tolkien created.
I have to say that I am a poor student in that I didn't use it as a big deep dive into Tolkien at all, and I should. And there's a lot of material for me to get through. Like I haven't read the Silmarillion. There's so much for me to learn, and I'm kind of in awe of people like Stephen Colbert, for instance, who's a complete expert. I can't hold a candle to them. I don't know a lot about Tolkien lore outside of what we made, to be honest. But I will eventually read into it and read more. But yeah, I'm an awful Tolkien scholar.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Next question. Nice outfit.
Hello.
The screaming bunny.
Can you hear me like this? Yeah. Hey, I was just wondering, I know you're a big horror fan, and I know you're in Maniac 2012, the remake. And I was just wondering, would you ever like to be in a big horror franchise, like a side character or even a main character?
Sure. Yeah. It depends on what it is, but yeah. Look, I love horror films. I think we're in another era where there's a real sort of focus on franchise and resurrecting old franchises as well. I would happily be a part of something that, again, it sort of depends on what it is, but of course, I'm a huge horror film fan. So to participate in that world, whatever it may be, would be a blast, yeah.
Thanks. Next question. Hello.
Hi Elijah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, it's a Dutch Comic Con, and how good is your Dutch? Because I want to teach you one word.
Oh, he wants to teach you one word in Dutch.
Okay.
Stroopwafel.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a very famous.
You heard about that?
Oh, of course.
Can you say that? Stroopwafel.
Stroopwafel.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, dude.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
I have a question. Well, the thing is that for the last several years, I saw on the internet that there are some people that confuse you with Daniel Radcliffe.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, some similarities, but come on, two different people. So, when people, for example, confuse you with Daniel Radcliffe, how do you handle it?
It depends. I'm not a big fan of correcting people, because sometimes that requires one to sort of say, I'm not that person, I'm this person, and I don't really... So I'll sort of let people, I won't correct them, unless they ask. So if they ask, are you Daniel Radcliffe, I'll say no. But I remember a funny story. I was in an elevator once, and it was just me and this other person. You know that thing that if you're in an elevator and it's just one other person, you're both not really looking at each other. And this is actually before cell phones. I wasn't looking at a phone. I was just sort of standing there, but I could tell this person was looking at me. And I could feel that he was getting up the courage to say something. And right as the elevator doors opened, he was like, Harry Potter. And I said, no. And I kept walking. I'll never forget that.
Somewhat of a comedic timing to that.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Now I remember Harry Potter.
So yeah, and it really depends on the context, but if people are convinced that I am him, look, this is a great example. I've had people come up to me and say, I loved you in, he was in a play on Broadway called Equus. And I'll be like, oh, thanks. I'll sometimes just say thanks. Not to dash people's dreams and ruin it for them. One of my favorite stories of being confused for someone else, I was at a shop and this woman came up to me and she said, hey, I saw you on, I think it was Jay Leno or some late night talk show last night. And I thought to myself, well, I wasn't on a show last night, but it may be a rerun, which happens, It's like, oh, that's possible. So I'm going along with what she's saying, and she's like, yeah, I deal with the same thing too at Thanksgiving. I'm a vegan, so it's always a difficult thing for me to navigate. I'm like, oh, she's not talking about me. She's talking about Tobey Maguire. But I was already too deep in the affirmative, affirming that she was right, that I was like, yeah, oh, I know, right? Yeah.
You left it.
And I was like, just please don't ask me anything more, don't make me ruin this for you. And she didn't, and it was sort of, we finished with yeah, me too. And then she walked away and I was like, woo! Thank God.
So you're not only Frodo, you're also Harry Potter and Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. That still happens.
To this day?
Yes! That one I really don't understand.
No.
At least Daniel and I, there's some resemblance in some ways. And we're a part of a similar franchise. It's set in a similar world, fantasy anyway. So that kind of cultural confusion I get. But Spider-Man?
Yeah, come on, man.
Don't get it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks, nice question. Next one.
So I'm quite giddy because you were my childhood crush during the faculty and so.
Oh, cool.
So one of my favorite films by you is Deep Impact. So it's about you being a man marrying a girl to save her from the comet.
Yes.
Looking back at it, how do you feel about the team marriage, the whole thing? I mean, you were a child, right?
Yeah, when we did that, I was 16, I think. Yeah. Look, I I loved that script. I loved that film was examining kind of what people do when faced with their demise, when they feel like there's no time left. Rather than it sort of focusing on the kind of disaster aspect of it, as an action film, it was really quite human, as each of these characters are sort of dealing with their life choices and things that they've done in their past, or in this case, you know, these two teen lovers that realize, like, we have no time left, let's get married. It was just very human and kind of beautiful. Yeah, I loved it. I loved working on that film. It was really fun.
Yes.
Lily Sobieski, who plays my girlfriend in the film, was lovely. And anecdote, I did not have my driver's license yet, and I needed to ride a motorcycle at the end of the film. So I went through the driver's ed and the driver's course. Also was trained how to ride a motorcycle, which was super fun. I was doing that on weekends with the stunt team. And then, so I simultaneously got my driver's license and my motorcycle license in time to be able to do that for the end of the film.
Amazing. Great question, great answer. I think we got to wrap this up. Maybe there's time for one short question.
Yeah,
Thank you. One quick question, because we're actually on over time.
Hi, I just want to ask you, how did you get the role as the guy from Spykids 3?
Well, good question. So I worked on a movie called The Faculty that Robert Rodriguez directed. Thank you. You know, my first trip to Amsterdam was a small press tour that we did for The Faculty. Many years ago. But anyway, so we'd worked together in that film, and when he was doing the third sequel for Spykids, he had written this character of the guy, and he just called me, and he was like, hey man, do you want to come to Austin and do a day's work? He's like, I've got this version of like The Chosen One. I call him the guy in this video game world. Would you play the character? I was like, that sounds fucking hilarious. Yeah, I'll do it. It'd be great. He's like, you're gonna die right away. He's like, you think you're super tough, and you like manifest in front of the kids, and then you take one hit and your 99 goes to 0. And I was like, that's really funny.
Nice.
Yeah, that's how that happened.
Thanks, man. I'm sorry we got to wrap it up. That was the last question. Thanks a lot. We're going to do this the right way, though. Listen, if you want to get an autograph and a picture, you can go there to the guest square and everything. But I want to get you all in one frame with Elijah. So let's cuddle up together. Let's see what's going on. Comic-Con, everybody in the building, make some noise for the homie Elijah Wood! Thanks, y'all! Thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Awesome, that was great. That was fun. Thanks, y'all.
Elijah Wood.